Hello and welcome to another episode of Invisible Walls. I am Ryan Stevens. I am joined by Benjamin Moore, the young Ben, and Marcus Beer.
The old Marcus.
The old Marcus, old and new. This episode is a little odd today. We've had some illness, some plague strike through the office. We have some people helping out. Thank you, Anton. You waved back at me. That was nice. But we are going to be talking about some exciting things in the changing world. And that's going to start off with Call of Duty Ghosts, which is a little late for Halloween. But Ben, you've already talked, I think, a ton about multiplayer with Rohan, which went up yesterday, so we can hit on that a little bit. But let's talk about the campaign.
Sure.
And Marcus, I know you have a deep, long history with Call of Duty and also Ghosts. Casper, I don't know. I think he's actually losing it a little bit. Anyway, I'm wearing a shirt. Anyway, let's get your take. Is this the best Call of Duty you've ever played?
I just can't even give a straight. All right, look. Yes, my history with Call of Duty is long and storied. I mean, I thought that was it Black Ops 2? I kind of liked that one. I think
Last year's.
I did too.
And then Modern Warfare 2 has always been the pinnacle. Sorry, Modern Warfare 1. Oh, which one was it?
One.
One.
Please say one.
Thank you.
And then 3 is forgettable.
That was the pinnacle for me. I got it this week. It was very kindly sent to me by Activision. Thank you very much, I think. And I'm not a multiplayer guy anymore. I'm kind of over that whole multiplayer aspect of it. So that's really not my cup of tea. But there are people who, perhaps will buy this for, to play some single player. And I got to say, when the commercial with Megan Fox is actually more enjoyable than your single player experience, maybe it's time to 86 single player from Call of Duty. Just a suggestion. Maybe it's time to actually put it aside, focus on multiplayer. With these next-gen consoles and the connectivity and everything, maybe it's time to just go multiplayer and stop even pretending to be anything more than the video game equivalent of Pearl Harbor by Michael Bay.
That's interesting you say that, because obviously Battlefield also just came out, where they've been adding more and more single player to that game. I do feel like Call of Duty has always stood on its three legs, or for the Infinity Ward games, it stood on the three legs, including their co-op take with Spec Ops. Obviously, this is a new Infinity Ward this time around, so I'm not really sure if shirking away from the campaign is really what they should do. But it does seem like the campaign is again the weak point for the game. But I don't know, Ben, what's your overall take? As expressed differently from the script you wrote.
No,
slightly differently.
It's really a shame, because I think Call of Duty has done pretty decent first-person shooter campaigns before. I think Modern Warfare 1 is a good example. I think Black Ops is a pretty good example, where at least you had characters that were memorable for one reason or another. I'm not saying they're perfect, but where you were always doing kind of different things, and they sort of played with what you would expect out of a Call of Duty game. But I feel like Ghost is the analogy I think that works well is, have you ever been reading a book or something and you're really tired? Like, let's say you're flipping through a magazine late at night and you're just sort of reading, and a while goes by and you realize that you don't remember what you read on the last 3 pages.
Yeah.
You just completely zone out, and that's it. You're done. That is what playing the entirety of the Ghost campaign is like. It is just so like, okay, here's an area of enemies. They're going to sit in the exact same spot. You're going to left trigger, right trigger until we tell you that it's okay to move on. And you do that until the game ends and the credits roll, and you think back to yourself. You don't even really know what happened. You didn't feel anything. You just kind of zoned out for 6 or 7 hours, and that was it.
Let me posit a question here, though, because everyone does like Modern Warfare 1, Call of Duty 4.
Understandably so.
If that game came out today, and graphics are a tiny bit nicer, because let's be honest, it hasn't really evolved all that much. Graphics are a little bit nicer, et cetera, et cetera. Would that game still have captured the zeitgeist like it did back in 2007, 2008, 7?
It's weird to say that, because I think part of the problem, specifically with Ghosts, is that it feels like it's just so beholden to this Modern Warfare template that's what's hurting it, right? Like maybe if Ghosts came out in 2007, it would be a lot more memorable. But it's diminishing returns with this stuff. Like you've done these things so many times over and over and over again that it just doesn't have the same impact. Like there needs to be something.
Do you
done.
think there is like a collective unconsciousness for gaming appetites? Like, you know, the kind of these giant set pieces, this kind of one-upmanship. Like, I mean, spoilers for Modern Warfare 1, but, you know, like an A-bomb goes off, you get shot in the head, and then they kind of continuously try to up the ante with an EMP takes out DC, you're in outer space in a cutscene, now you're in outer space in the game, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, Black Ops tried to, you know, do the Future Shock stuff where it's like, you know, quasi-realistic, maybe that's not even accurate, but you know, it's military, but it's military with the future edge. And is it like, you know, and then you look at the games like Battlefield's campaign, no one really enjoyed all that much. Obviously, Warfighter was a travesty. I do know people did enjoy the Bad Company campaigns to a degree, but those were also earlier on in this kind of military timeline, just as we kind of got over World War II.
Yeah. Just go back to your point about Modern Warfare 1 and how it would stand up nowadays. I don't know if it perhaps would have stood up nowadays, but it basically did a lot that nobody else was doing, and it was more of a military shooter back then, as opposed to what we're seeing now, which is lead by the nose, twitch, 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 twitch. It is Twitch gaming at its worst, unfortunately, because people are playing for the multiplayer, buying the multiplayer component, and that's what they want to play, which is again more Twitch gaming. And there's nothing wrong with having the multiplayer Twitch component, and people love it. More power to you. But just to come up with, to keep this charade going, of look at this, look at these cutscenes. I mean, in the first two scenes, or the first two levels, whatever you want to call them, of Call of Duty Ghosts, I felt like I was playing Tommy Lee Jones in Volcano the movie.
You're really reaching today.
And then I felt that, having just watched Gravity, it's like Gravity with guns.
We were going to do a good Gravity piece.
Which, again, I mean, it's one of those things that, because you're like, follow me, I'm here, follow this, shot in the head, cut to the next thing. It's just the following. I mean, the dog has more friggin' freedom in Call of Duty Ghosts campaign than the player does. Well, and I just think it's time to say, you know what, we're going to put all that budget, because let's face it, the single player stuff is not cheap to produce. It is very expensive. It does take a lot of man hours to put all that scripting in place and have those big set piece events. Go multiplayer only, invest in getting all those set piece events into multiplayer and evolve it. Make it a co-op only game, even, co-op and regular multiplayer or whatever. And just go that way and admit this is your audience, because unless they're going to bring people in, and let's face it, calling Infinity Ward right now, and again, no disrespect to you guys, it's like saying that the Rare of today is the Rare of GoldenEye. It's not the same company. It's not the same leadership. So you're going to have different strengths and weaknesses. And it's time to say, all right, we're going to step back. We're going to focus on this. And the Activision heads need to say, yeah, we will put this in and make it the best multiplayer Twitch shooting military game ever made. And then we can be justified and people will be happy and it will be great. Just keep on. Just drop the charade.
Again, I've said my piece on that already, where I think that kind of stands. But do you think, just something you said was interesting to me, do you think to use the marketing buzzword, do you think the Levolution in Battlefield 4 is trying to transpose that kind of set piece play style into multiplayer?
Yeah, I think, Battlefield has
that as effective ad nauseum, though? Because, I mean, how many times did we watch that building fall during the beta for Battlefield 4?
Was all, again, by the fifth or sixth match, and you've seen it, it does lose its wow, I think, right? But like at least with Battlefield, on a completely superficial level, I think to expect Call of Duty or Battlefield to not be a bunch of shooting and explosions is a little bit disingenuous. But at least with Battlefield, you did see a pretty big advancement in tech. I think Battlefield 4 looks significantly better. I think it's more impressive visually than Call of Duty is. Call of Duty, it doesn't look or feel that much different than the original Modern Warfare.
Avoid you.
Oh, can we talk about the running animations?
Yes, the running animations are not very good.
Can we talk about right? First thing you do is you just see this at the bottom of the screen, and it's totally out of pace with the pace you are setting. And then you go later on. You're inside a old theater, and you're following somebody, Kel Surprise, and you watch them go up some steps, and it's like they're cycling. It's like literally the little legs are going like the clappers.
Remember in Black Ops 2
always
when
been
you're
that
like
way.
in psycho mode, when you're like the screen's on fire and you're just killing everyone?
Yeah.
Is that are you the bad guy then? I don't even remember. These stories are so fractured.
Yeah, you
But I
are.
remember
You are
now
the bad
you're
guy.
just like,
Yeah.
Kill.
I think his name might be like Ramirez. I don't remember.
So yeah, Call of Duty. I'm curious. Is this the start of the Activision fatigue that we saw with Tony Hawk and Guitar Hero?
Well,
is this the first? I mean, on a critical stance, it's starting to take a hit.
I feel like that's a really easy thing to
Maybe
say.
sold 1 billion copies, but $1 billion.
I think we should be a little bit more cautious and nuanced with it because, like, I don't think Black Ops 2 is an amazing game or anything, but I think Treyarch has really shown, if you look at the evolution from World at War to Black Ops 2, I think those guys keep getting better, and they sort of hold this nothing is sacred approach, I almost feel like, and some of the things they do genuinely do surprise me, and I think they are smart additions, and I think Black Ops 2 is a much, much stronger game with Ghosts. So, if Black Ops 3 or whatever Treyarch does next comes out and it's not that special, then maybe we can say, like, this is the decline of Call of Duty. But I think it's important to keep in mind that there are two different studios.
Put your allegiance on Treyarch at this point.
I don't have an allegiance to
I mean,
Treyarch.
I'm speaking in a more general sense. Like, don't count them out.
Well, you prefer the Treyarch ones. Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 was fun. The single player component, you could forgive it being the same engine over and over. You could forgive some of the issues with it because it was fun, and it was still leading you to a certain degree, but it at least made the effort. This one doesn't even seem to make the effort to pretend to not to lead you.
My
by the
favorite
nose.
thing with the Infinity Ward games was Spec Ops. So how is Spec Ops this time around?
There isn't a Spec Ops. So
That's my poker face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like they really dropped the ball with Modern Warfare 3 as well, making Horde mode take up like half of the Spec Op missions. But that was me personally. A lot of people really dug that.
I think the Horde mode is okay.
I think treating co-op as something special is important, and fewer. No one ever really does it all that much. So I thought it was actually nice when Infinity Ward, with Modern Warfare 2, really did handle it with care.
Well, Spec Ops, the introduction of Spec Ops was a great thing, and it was one of the things again that was good. Good co-op is not Horde mode, and honestly, I think
I don't know about that.
Horde mode is like, it's like that sushi you like to get on the revolving things. That's all the same price. That's Horde mode. Okay, it's the same shit coming around time and time again. Good co-op, you can have varied missions. You don't have to have 16 people playing together. You have some objectives, and it's not just Space Invaders. What I think is going to be interesting is when we're sitting here in 6 months' time and we see what the real Infinity Ward do with Titanfall. Mm-hmm. Because that being an Xbox One exclusive, multiplayer obviously being one of their fortes, and this being a much bigger thing, that is going to be interesting to see. Perhaps as a barometer as to perhaps where they could have taken Call of Duty. And the other thing I'm going to say from Activision then is we've got Destiny next year, and I think taking a sort of like a page from the Destiny Bungie book for Call of Duty might be a smart idea. You don't need to regurgitate the same thing every year. And I think who knows, these franchises will come along and Activision will say 1 year's a Destiny year, 1 year's a Call of Duty year, and it's Call of Duty via Treyarch, and we're going to do this, this, and this. They've got more time to build it, and we're just going to put that together because what does Activision have right now? They have Destiny, they have Skylanders, and they have Call of Duty.
Yeah, and then if maybe they're going to use a little Marvel juice here and there still.
We'll see.
Transformers, who knows?
I sympathize with Infinity Ward. Call of Duty has long been the biggest game in the world, and I think fundamentally their multiplayer is still good. It's still fun to play. I don't think Ghost is a bad game. It's just more of the same, and I think that affects it. And I can understand from their perspective, how do we change this without ruining this good thing that we've built? So
you add a dog.
I don't. The dog is actually okay. The dog is not something to complain about. Yeah, but I don't think Infinity Ward is untalented, or they were.
Nobody's saying that. Nobody's
Okay.
saying that they're untalented. It is a different team. It's not, it's not the team that created, some of the real high points in the franchise. It is a different team, and different. You can't replicate the same thing over and over with different teams. It's a poison chalice. Call of Duty is a poison chalice right now, in that you're never going to win. Well, no matter what you do anything that's remotely similar to last time, and people are expecting more. It's the same as the England soccer manager's job. Everybody's there to criticize and knock you off your perch because you are number one, because you made $1 billion in the first 24 hours, and beat out Grand Theft Auto 5, which is a little disingenuous because one game was only on 2 formats. But I would like to see a Call of Duty that embraces the multiplayer and evolves the multiplayer and becomes something that really, really cool, and takes some chances and reintroduces killer co-op. Great co-op is the core of the only thing that could tempt me back into multiplayer gaming right now is great co-op, because I am totally over listening to 12-year-olds scream racial and sexist epithets over Xbox Live.
Do you enjoy zombies?
Kind of. Look, the next zombie game I'm going to play is going to be, I think, Dead Rising 3.
Did you mean the zombies mode?
Yes, zombies mode in.
I could take it or leave it. I mean, zombies again. It's everybody's done zombies. Ninja cats. That's what they want for the next one. Ninja cats.
And let me just ask one last quick question, because this is something I actually wrote down a while ago. We were kind of talking about this around the office, especially in the wake of Battlefield and Call of Duty. When was there and I know you said you kind of liked Black Ops 2 campaign, which I think is also kind of it's okay. When was the last time there was a first-person shooter campaign that people went gaga over? Like, I feel like we were looking at the first-person shooters, and it's like Far Cry 3 I think people definitely did enjoy, and that was way more open world.
I don't like the.
Well, I think,
And then Metro Last Light never really got also on Linux right now. That's pretty cool if you think about the Steam stuff. But anyway, Metro Last Light, I think people really enjoyed it, but it didn't really hit a critical pulse. I'm just saying that, look at Warfighter and all this other stuff. There hasn't really been a first-person shooter campaign in quite a while.
The two
that
the
has
two that
really
you
grabbed
mentioned
people.
That I actually really did enjoy both of them. I think it's also the fact that neither of them were out and out military.
I
Metro,
that one.
Metro always reminds me of Half-Life in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Scavenging.
Far Cry was just daft. It was daft and fun, and then the Far Cry expansion with the laser, with the dinosaurs, the neon
Blood
dinosaurs,
Dragon.
lasers. Yeah,
That
that
was
was
great,
also fun and daft. And those were great. They were great single player campaigns. Going back
world,
to I think to look in the military section, I think you're going back to Modern Warfare 1. I mean, I still bemoan, and I've done this so many times, but I haven't done it this year yet, the death of what was Ghost Recon and what was Rainbow Six. Because I think there are enough people out there playing these military shooters and playing them on multiplayer or whatever now that they could look at repurposing the original Ghost Recon missions and the original Rainbow Six missions, bring those franchises back, and introducing people who are playing in squads and clans or whatever to more in-depth planning on how to execute stuff on a mission. And I think some of that stuff, again, Rogue Spear still has some of the best first-person, military shooter missions of any game ever, in my opinion.
And Ben, any first-person shooters in the last couple of years that had a campaign that really stood out for you?
I'm gonna kind of cheat here. It's not a first-person shooter; it's a third-person shooter. But I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to plug it because I think it's excellent. I think Spec Ops: The Line, a super underappreciated, but
And military.
and military, and it what an incredible game in my opinion, where it really played with your expectations of what you think that type of game is, and flips it on its head, and really tried to say something meaningful. And I think that's ultimately what disappoints me. I think in Black Ops 2 and in Modern Warfare 1, there was sort of this pseudo commentary, like trying to make sense of all the shooting that you're doing, but just something that tries to give you a reason to care. You know, that was the thing when I was playing through Ghost, is I never had a reason to care about what I was doing. And I'm not saying it has to be this overwrought melodramatic experience, but
I would say it actually has more overwrought, melodramatic, but badly executed overwrought melodramatic stuff. That's why I make the comparison to Pearl Harbor by Michael Bay.
yeah, I think that's a good comparison.
It's not just them. The whole world wants you dead.
So guess what? Metal Gear news. So people are excited. Metal Gear Ground Zeroes. You know, I think at TGS the confusion kind of got even to its highest point and then kind of settled with people seeing it kind of being a mission, being kind of somewhat enveloped in what is going to be the Phantom Pain. And now we're getting it. When do you know when we're getting it? It's spring.
Spring 2014.
Spring. Yeah. So
For $30 $30 American
Kojima
dollars.
Spring. I'm one of those people who bought the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo, which you weren't supposed to be able to sell.
You mean Zone of the Enders?
No, I bought the demo disc.
okay,
I bought the
okay.
demo disc for $10.
I'm one of
Despite knowing it was like 2 hours long, I know you could replay it a bunch, but me and my friends actually bought it. We did not buy Zone of the Enders. We just bought the disc. So I've been
You
there.
could make an argument for that being the best demo that's ever come out.
Shoot, top 10 demos.
Yeah, we should.
Stanley Parable.
I would like to say that I'm one of the people who bought Metal Gear Solid the VR missions
I rented it.
on the PS1, and I actually Instagrammed a picture of a bunch of PlayStation 1 games I found, and there's, in my garage.
I completely rented that game because I thought you were going to be able to play as the ninja, and you are for like 3 missions, and it's awful. And also there's the weird murder mystery stuff, which is also awful. There's some good stuff in there, but for the most part, it's a waste of
I
time.
haven't played it
Yep.
in 12 years.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yep.
Yep.
So are you?
Notes in class.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
So
You
now I
can't
don't
read
have
it.
to.
It's
Now
a
I don't have to
spoiler
play
note.
Ghosts. I don't know. I think this is interesting. I'm curious about this $30 price point. Still seems a little weird to me. I was wondering, Marcus, from your old PR stance, if this has any thoughts going through your head.
Every time you say that, I feel I should adjust into PR stance.
Yeah, you should do
I
it.
need
That's
to
your
work on
fighting
that. I need to
style.
work on my PR
Your
stance.
ism.
My bullshit attack. Look, it depends on how long we're looking at. How much of a game we're looking at. Yes, it is a prequel to the Phantom Pain. If it's $30 and it's a, who knows, 6-8 hour experience, 6 hour experience
With the
I think,
cutscenes.
30. Not with that. Not with the 3 hour cutscenes. But no, if there is enough meat on the bones, we know there is a market for it. We know that we talked about the Far Cry Blood Dragon. That was a nice amount of experience for $15.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at quality experience, if they turn around and Ground Zeroes is 2 hours, including half an hour of cutscenes for $30, that's going to be diabolical. But there's no indication that is the case before the Metal Gear fanboys start.
Well, right now,
attacking
would
me.
you buy it? Like, from what you know right now, which obviously isn't much, not that it came off as a slight, but from what we do know of it right now, would you get it?
I don't think I'm the right person to ask.
Okay, how about you, Ben?
Yeah,
Young Benjamin?
Metal Gear. This sounds so cheesy, but Metal Gear is the reason why I got into games so heavily in the first place.
It's good to know who to blame.
Yeah, I want to get back to that for a second. The biggest concern I have is what they've shown to the press. They've shown a lot more Ground Zeroes than they have Phantom Pain, and I'm worried that Ground Zeroes is going to come out and it's going to be fine. Obviously, it's going to have a lot of unanswered questions, as Metal Gear games tend to do. But then are we waiting another year, another 2 years for Phantom Pain? Like, we have no indication. Like, I feel like Ground Zeroes needs to come out, and then 3 to 6 months later, like, Phantom Pain needs to come out. Otherwise, it's going to be
You want it
too
to be
far
like
between
the
those
second
two.
2 Matrix movies.
Yeah, Phantom Pain needs to hit next fall.
Yeah, it does. It has to. Otherwise, it's the momentum is going to be gone, and no one is going to care.
Have they said anything if, like, your save data is going to affect anything?
No, they haven't said anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of curious about. Like, I mean, especially, I hate to say this, I mean, kind of in this cloud state of mind, even though I think the cloud's kind of a joke, but there is these ideas, having played, like, the Dark Souls 2 beta recently as well, it's like all that stuff kind of coinciding with the single player and the possibilities that online storage and games. I mean, games have been doing this for, like, Wizardry, you could import your character, but that kind of stuff.
Fable did it for a
Nice.
long time.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mass Effect carried
Quest
that
for
over
Glory is
3
my baby,
games.
but
I mean,
Marcus, can I ask you a
oh yeah,
question?
Mass Effect.
no.
You just did.
Metal Gear Solid seems like one of those series that I could just see you sitting at your TV swearing at the whole time, just saying, like, what is this stupid garbage? Nanomachines? What the fuck? Like,
Okay,
that's what I envision.
I played the first Metal Gear Solid game I played was the first one coming out on the PlayStation,
Yeah, brilliant game.
and I loved it.
Yeah, you did. I'm sorry, I just really like that game a lot.
How old are you again?
31,
No, how old are you?
24.
All right, you don't talk again till you're 25. No, look, it was brilliant, and I really, really loved it. I actually enjoyed the cutscenes because I didn't think they were too long, and I was marveling at the PlayStation
Well,
One at the time.
it's like Ghost. Nothing was like that back then.
Exactly.
You know?
But I've got to say, I mean, since I've got, I went kind of cold on it. I mean, it just seemed, my gaming tastes evolved or devolved, whichever fanboy camp you happen to be in at the time. So yeah, I mean,
Was it just too crazy for you? Is that what happened? Or?
it just seemed to it fell into that almost like I fell out of love with a lot of the Japanese stuff. I mean, I bought all the Final Fantasy games. I played all the Final Fantasy games, and I got to like Final Fantasy 9 and 10, and I was like, I'm playing the same thing over and over. And like I said, my gaming taste changed. I went off in a different direction. When I saw Ground Zeroes demoed, it's interesting. I like the way they're going, more open world, a little more flexible, and I am interested. I'm not sure I'm one of these guys who will bust down GameStop's doors day one to get it, but I am definitely open to trying it and seeing what the new experience is.
Cool.
Any final thoughts on Ground Zeroes? I feel like we can bring up the open world thing some other time. I'm glad you didn't just, again, reseed that, because I think everyone saw Kojima was wearing a Los Santos shirt during TGS, and he's been paying high respects to Rockstar and their open worldness.
Open world,
so
it's a good way to go. It is a good way to go, and with the new processing power, especially on the PS4, which is the more powerful of the two new consoles, I think there is definitely an area for people to go and expand, and that's what people have wanted from a lot of people have wanted from Japanese developers over the last five or so years. They were dominating, they were innovating constantly, and then they hit a peak where we are still number one, and it's almost like they got cautious with a lot of them. It's like, we're going to do the same thing over and over because we're at the top and we're scared to push forward in case we drop. And some of the Western developers came and surpassed them. And, there are smart Japanese developers, in my opinion, who have looked at that and said, yeah, we need to integrate perhaps some stuff here, or while not losing our overall feel of the games, but we can incorporate and evolve. So, if this is an example of that, I'm definitely going to be looking forward to playing it.
So last week, Chris and I got to check out a ton of Xbox One stuff, including some of the interface things with the TV and Skype and whatnot. We got to check out Dead Rising 3, Rise, Loco Cycle, Crimson Dragon, D4, and Forza and Power Star Golf. We didn't get time to check out the Zoo game. That the name escapes me at the moment.
Zoo Tycoon.
Zoo Tycoon. And Chris, unfortunately, is one of the people who's fallen ill this week. Hopefully he'll recover in time for BlizzCon. But we will... you guys have any general questions? Unfortunately, I was not the guy who had the hands-on with Rise. I will say Rise did impress me. I know there's been a lot of hate floating around.
Can I ask you what impressed you about Rise?
I thought like its feedback loop of just kind of sticking to build up these combos, choose how you want to get rewarded with XP, health, or whatnot, and then you're rewarded with this visual stuff. It's very base. It is, you're rewarded with executions, but it's done well. It's funny because they've been shoving the word cinematic down your throat, but when you kind of see these things kind of like lined up, it's like, oh, this doesn't look all so bad. I don't know about the infamous. I think some dude from Game Informer said it's like dialing a bunch of phone numbers. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play. I picked up the controller, but there was no enemies around, and I got killed by a one-hit trap, which definitely did not make me feel particularly glad for the game. But I was somewhat impressed, especially after I think a really, really poor initial showing it had at E3. It may be one of those games that is remembered as a launch game, which would put it in the kind of the realms of probably
Perfect
the first
Dark.
Resistance, Red Steel, which is one of those games that some people may stomach and may have a small following, or who knows, maybe it will be a good game. I don't think we've had enough time to really do it. Oh, I will say every game that has Kinect support, it's the same thing. You can tell your troops to go somewhere. I guess it's like Battlefield,
Can you disable that, though?
Battlefield, Dead Rising, and Rise. They're like, yeah, sometimes with the Kinect you can like point and send your comrades over there. I'm like, okay.
Can you disable that? Because for me, I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, I hope so, because again, one, Kinect has never been able to understand my devilishly sexy Welsh American accent. But two, there's nothing worse than, as I experienced with Mass Effect 3, I'm in a conversation, my wife comes in, asks me what I want for dinner, and the Kinect recognizes her voice and makes a choice for me.
Not sure. When we got to see the interface demo, it did recognize two separate people. One guy was making sure not to face it, and then he turned around and it logged him in. I asked them how it deals with identical twins, and they said you'd have to train it a bit with voices, and it'll pick up on like microtonalities or whatnot, and small skeleton differences. It is very quick, the Kinect stuff that we saw. Like we did a Skype call that was set up and it was tracking someone. And it's doing all that TV stuff, which I'm not so interested in. It does do the something I was slightly more interested in is that it's going to be scraping stuff from Hulu and Netflix and all those other apps, so you can actually get like a programming grid to see what's happening there. But I'm not sure exactly how that's happening. As someone who hasn't had cable TV as an adult, I'm still not completely sure about all the sports stuff per se.
All right, let's talk about Dead Rising 3, because
Dead Rising 3's other Kinect thing is you shake the controller, and it's reading it on the Kinect, not reading it on the controller.
All right. Well, I am interested.
Sorry, just got to get that one in there.
No, valid point. That might actually be a use for Kinect I could go with. Dead Rising 3, when it was first demoed, a little bit underwhelmed. Second time I saw some videos on it, getting more interested. I've seen some of the coverage from this week. I am getting more excited about this game. The fact that it's, again, huge open world, lots and lots of zombies. Now, this is the type of zombies I can handle, but the creativity. Did you get a chance to play around with that? And what did you make one of those RoboCats?
We saw an hour demo. It does have a lot of the wacky stuff. The story seems less tongue in cheek. Like even the psychos, as weird as they were, like the conversational stuff seemed a little less tongue in cheek. But they're still wearing our guy was wearing a shark hat. And shark mascot had in a tuxedo. They went to a museum that was honoring Frank West and Chuck. God, I forgot Chuck's name. It definitely, it's the same guys who made Dead Rising 2, so it does definitely feel like a Dead Rising game. One of the things I did not get into is they're very obsessed with the number 7. There's like 7 days, 7 chapters. There's going to be 7 psychos based on the 7 deadly sins, which makes me wonder if that seems like a much smaller psycho count than before. Not much smaller. I'm not sure if it's just going to be those psychos. It looks a lot like a Dead Rising game. I know people have been upset with the frame rate before. I'm pretty sure it faltered a couple of times, but it was pretty much locked at the 30 frames per second. It's a Dead Rising game.
The thing that I'm worried about, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on, is the stringent schedule of Dead Rising 1 and Dead Rising 2, where it's like, okay, you have to do this thing by this time, you have to rescue this person and get him back within a certain amount of time, is completely gone. You don't have to worry about that anymore unless you do this special mode. To me, that was kind of, as frustrating as it could be, it was sort of something that helped separate Dead Rising from
it
something.
Endeared it to you.
Yeah, it was crazy in a way that Japanese games can only be crazy.
Yeah, I think they're trying to open it up to a larger audience that would be put off by something like that.
Well, do you think it's going to make it more generic as a result? Like it's going to lose what made it special?
I always put Dead Rising in this category that I call a Japanese roguelike, like Shiren the Wanderer and stuff, where there's this weird level of persistence and like how you save and level up and stuff like that. I think it's just kind of how games evolve in general. It's hard for me to say. I can posit something, but it's hard for me to say with any certainty if it's actually a bad move or a good move, because a lot of times now for games that I'm only kind of lukewarm on, I will play it at maybe on an easier difficulty or something just to get the experience.
Don't they say, and perhaps I'm confusing this with something else, but isn't it almost similar to Arkham City in a lot of ways, where if you get in proximity to something, a mission will pop up, a side mission.
There are a lot of side missions. I'm not sure if it's proximity
might have
based.
some of your, some of these, timed rescue missions, unless they've pulled them totally, because they could be frustrating. And the thing I would like is if you're not forced into them. If it's like one of those things where it's like, I could be the nice guy and rescue the cat from the tree, or I could just continue wearing my shark hat and running around with a chainsaw. That to me is all about choices, and I like choices in my games.
I will say with the 7 days and the open world, it's probably going to definitely seem and feel, and probably is the biggest Dead Rising game ever, which I think for a lot of the people that are the fans of that game are going to really, really dig. I don't know if it's going to make people break open the piggy banks, right, to actually get an Xbox for this particular game. I always thought it was an interesting choice for Microsoft had put a lot of muscle behind this. Obviously, the first one really was a big selling point, but not a lot of people actually finished that game. That was a game people like to mess around with.
But it was good for that, right? It was built in such a way where it was really fun to see, like, okay, how many things can I pick up and throw or beat with, beat zombies with? It was cool.
And it's that again. Again, like it doesn't. Where that game, a lot of people like to point at Dead Rising as a game that felt next gen back in 2007, and I'm not sure if this game, it being bigger, it's like it's the same thing, but it's bigger.
Right.
I don't know if that's actually gonna, give off the next gen dividends that people may be wanting.
Huge, daft zombie sandbox.
The thing is, though,
it's going to be the open world.
Another thing I'm concerned of is if you watch videos, you look at screenshots of Dead Rising 3, it looks really gray and dark. And, if you look at Dead Rising 2, or Dead Rising 1.
The neon lights of the mall and
yeah, it felt like a glorified playground, and it was fun. And, even the psychos, you were fighting, a clown, a psychotic clown. Like, there was a sense of zaniness to it that I haven't really seen. Of course, I haven't played Dead Rising 3, but I haven't seen in Dead Rising 3. And I'm just concerned, again,
there's the zaniness, but I think it's been dialed back a little bit. But it's still there in spades, but I don't think it's quite as woven into the DNA as much as it was in the past. Because even with Chuck, like, he's like, my little girl's gonna die, it's like, even with that, it was like still kind of there. But even from the first game, with the photographs and the sexy moniker popping up and whatnot, I think they are kind of making it maybe a little more, maybe generic's the word, I'm not quite sure, but a little more just home base safe. You can maybe make it the zombie game you want it to be. Like, if you want to only wear, sportswear and shoot people, it can be a little more of a serious zombie survival game. The psychos are still a little psycho, though.
With the 7 deadly sins being the basis for the psychos, Sloth is going to be a really interesting psycho.
Sloth was interesting in 7.
Yeah,
the Fincher film.
He's just going to perhaps sit there and do nothing.
I'm picturing something really gross. That's all I'm going to say. And finally, I'm going to kind of have to wrap up, but did get to mess around with Forza. Drivatars were used. I dropped my pen. And I got to rear end Major Nelson. Yeah? What? I don't get it. Anyway. But I will say, from the whole Drivatar thing, it's still a little hard to determine, and if I was saying if you drive backwards for like a million games, is there going to be a rogue Drivatar out there who just drives backwards? And no, they have protection models for that. So it doesn't necessarily feel human from the brief demo. But what I thought was interesting is Power Star Golf and Crimson Dragon also have Drivatars to a degree. Crimson Dragon, you can bring on a wingman from someone from your friends list, and it's basically like importing their play style as a wingman on a dragon for you. And Power Star Golf, you can challenge someone to a round of golf based on that. If this is the power of the cloud, it seems more like just universal ghosts and taking it an extra step, and I don't think that's a bad thing, but I'm still looking for that kind of computational push you get from, distributed computing, like folding at home or something. And after the sham that was SimCity, I still haven't seen anything that really sells it to me. So next week will be the PlayStation 4 launch. So expect a lot of stuff. We're going to have hopefully a ton of reviews. We're going to be doing a live stream, I believe, next Friday as well as a special Invisible Walls where we'll be talking about everything we can talk about the PlayStation 4, which hopefully by that point, these dreadful embargoes will have lifted. Hope to see you there. And everyone, tell Chris you should get better.